Hey everyone, and welcome back to Barcode. In the previous video we covered the primitive data types. Today we're gonna talk about another fundamental concept in programming, and that is control flow. This is where your program starts to think, so to say. So without wasting any more time, let's get into it. First up, decision making. This is where your program decides what to do based on certain conditions. The most commonly used decision making statement is the if statement. Just like in real life, where I can say, if it's sunny, I'm gonna go bike, I can do this in Java as well. And the syntax goes like this. If, in parentheses the condition, after that in curly braces, what I want my program to do if the condition was found to be true, else, if the condition was false, do this instead. Now let's check out an example. Let me comment this out. First, I'm going to create my condition, boolean sunny. It's going to be sunny today. And if, in parentheses, my condition, sunny, in curly braces, what I want the program to do, in this case, tell me go right. Else, if sunny is false, then it's going to tell me stay home. And if I run it, Java tells me go right because sunny was true. If I change it to false, it tells me stay home. If you want, you can also leave the else away. And what this gonna do, if gonna check if sunny was true, gonna execute the code block and moves on. If it was false, it skips the code block and moves on. Now, if you want, you can also chain your if statements. Let's create another variable. This time it's gonna be snowy. And in the else part, I'm gonna write else if snowy in curly braces. Let's make a snowman. And if it was neither snowy nor sunny, then do what you like. And if I run this, Java checks, is sunny true? No, it wasn't true. It moves on to the next. Is snowy true? It was true. It executed this code block. It told us, let's make a snowman. And then ended the if statement. Now, if I change sunny to true as well, Java gonna check, is sunny true? It was true. It executed the code, go right, and then exited the if statement. So it checks the conditions one after the other until it finds one to be true, executes the code, and then exits the if statement. You can also nest your if statements. Let me comment this part out and create another variable for the temperature. Int temp equals 35 degrees Celsius. And in my if statement, I can say if it's sunny, then check if the temperature is over 30, then let's go swim. Let's swim. Else, if it's less than 30, but still sunny, then let's go right. Else, stay home. Now what this does, first checks if sunny is true. If it's not true, it moves on to the else part, executes the code block, and exits the if statement. But if sunny is true, then jumps in, and there is the nested if statement. It's gonna check, is my temperature over 30? If yes, executes the statement after the condition itself. If it was not over 30, it jumps to the else part, executes this code, and exits the if statement. Let's see this in action. Let's swim because snowy was true and the temperature was over 30. If the temperature goes below 30, then it's gonna tell us let's go right. But if it's not sunny at all, then stay home. Technically, you can chain and nest your if statements as much as you'd like, but if you go overboard, your code gonna become unreadable pretty quickly. And one last thing, if you only have one code to be executed in your code block, you can leave the curly braces away. So in this case here, this print statement, I can put in without the braces. And when the curly braces are left away, for better readability, the code is usually put after the condition itself, just like this. I cleaned up my code a little bit and I created another variable called weather of the type char. In this, I'm going to store the weather condition outside. The values I thought of are sunny, cloudy, rainy, windy, and foggy. And the letter in the weather are going to represent one of those values. So S, C, R, W, or F. And depending what kind of weather is outside, I'm going to go for a ride, for a swim. Maybe I will stay home. We will see. If I want to do this with if statements, I have to chain a few of them together. And it's going to look like this. And as you see, it looks not all that nice. It's complex, out of the place, whatever you want to call it. In this case, when you have one variable with multiple possible values, instead of chaining ifs together, you can use a so-called switch statement. I'm going to copy paste this over from my notes just to save some time. The switch statement goes like this. Switch, in parentheses, the variable you want to check. And underneath, you're going to list your cases. Like, in case the weather equals S, do this. In the case of C, or when the weather equals C, do this, and so on. It looks much nicer, much easier to read. But if I run this, we're going to see something interesting. Java says go to everything. And that is because the switch works differently than an if statement. The switch goes like this. It starts with the first case, evaluates it. If it falls, it moves on. So on until it finds a true statement. And when it finds a case that's true, so the weather equals S in this case, it jumps in the code block and executes every code in that switch statement. Not just what's in this case, but everything after that also. That's why in a switch statement, we use another keyword called break, like this. And what this does, it tells Java, break out of the statement you found this break in. So if I run this, Java gonna check whether, is it an S? Yes, it was an S. Then it's gonna print out go swim and then break out of the switch statement. And this break we have to put after every case. So no matter which case is true, Java executes only those codes in the case. And after that, finds a break and breaks out of the switch. Here, in this case as well, here as well, here as well. Now, the last case is a default. It's like an else in an if-else statement. You don't have to include it if you don't want, but if you want a fallback, then you can put in default, and this is going to be executed if none of the cases were found to be true. And just for consistency, we can put a break in here as well. It's not absolutely necessary because it's the last case. So if nothing was true, then this is executed, and after that the switch statement ends. But if in the future, for whatever reason, you're gonna put some more cases in, and the new cases you're gonna list after the default value, then you have to have the break, because otherwise it's gonna have the same problem again. And last but not least, the ternary operator. At first glance, this is gonna look complex and intimidating, but once you get the hang of it, you're gonna appreciate the simplicity it can bring to your code. Let's describe it first. You start by typing what you want to do, what to do. Then you're gonna specify your condition based on, and you yourself don't know whether that's true or false. That's why a question mark, but Java's gonna. And if Java tells you it's true, this is the value you want to get back. Colon, in case it's false, then you want to get back this value. Let's make a few examples to make it more clear. Let's declare two integers. A is gonna be 10 and B gonna equal to 20. And we make a third integer called maximum. This gonna have the larger value of the two. With an if-else statement, it goes like this. If the condition is A is larger than B, if that's true, I want the maximum to equal A. Otherwise, or else in Java, I want my maximum variable to equal B. And if I print this out, I should get 20. Now with the ternary operator, it looks like this. Let's comment this out. What I want to do is assign a value to my maximum variable. What is the condition I base the whole thing on? That A is larger than B. I myself don't know whether that's true or false, so I let Java decide. If Java decides, well, actually if Java checks and evaluates that the condition is true, then I want to get the value of A back, otherwise B. And if I print this out, I still get 20. If I change this to 30, I get back 30. Now, what I actually wanted to do to print out a larger value, so I can do it also like this. What I wanted to do is print out something. My condition was that A is larger than B. What I don't know, but I will let Java check it. If it turns out to be true, then I want it to print out A, otherwise B. Let's see if it works. And I still get 30. If I change this to 120, I got 120. And now on to loops. Loops are the task repeating part of your program, and they come in two different flavors. On one hand, you have the ones that repeat based on a number or a value. On the other hand, you have the ones that repeat based on a condition. And this is true generally in programming, not only for Java. In Java, we have two loops. The for loop, this is what repeats based on a value. And on the other hand, we have the while loop. This is the loop that repeats based on a condition. Let's have a look. First up, the for loop. Let's describe it. If you want to create a for loop, you type for. In parentheses, you have to add three things. The first is your counter or iterator with a starter value, semicolon, the end value, when the loop should stop, and the third thing is the update, how your iterator should change in each loop. Let's check this out with an example. Let's say we want to print out the numbers from 1 to 10 onto the screen. We type for. The iterator gonna be an integer. Let's call it number. It's gonna start from 1. The end value is 10, so I want my loop to run as long as my number is either smaller or equal to 10. And the update is gonna be, I want to increase my number by 1 in each loop, so number plus plus. And in curly braces, I'm gonna put my print statement where I print my number. And if we run this, Java printed out the numbers from 1 to 10. If you have a set or a collection and you want to iterate through it, you can use the so-called enhanced for loop. Let me show you how that works. I will comment this out first. Create an array of integers of a bunch of random numbers. And if I want to go through this array and print the numbers out one by one onto the screen, I can use the enhanced for loop, which looks like this. For, in parentheses, I start again with my iterator, I, this time, colon, and the name of my array, in this case numbers. What this does, it goes through the array, takes the elements one by one, and passes it into my iterator into y. And if I try to print out the I onto the screen, it will print out the elements one by one. And one last thing regarding the type of the iterator. In case of an enhanced for loop, you don't have to use the same data type like your collection, but you have to make sure that the elements of your collection can be passed into your iterator. So in this case, I could use also a long, and it would still work. But the other way around, it wouldn't, because if I have longs here and my iterator is an integer, it can be that the long goes beyond the range of an integer, and in this case, Java wouldn't even let me run the program. So just to be on the safe side, make sure you use the same data type as an iterator like you have for your set or collection or array or whatever you want to iterate through. And in case of a regular for loop, you can use all kinds of number types like integer, short, byte, long, double, float. You can also use the character type char. But if you use the float or a double, you have to understand that these are not always accurate, and if rounding occurs, your loop might function differently than you might expect. So if you really have to use float or double for whatever reason, make sure that you check for edge cases, and you keep in mind that if rounding occurs, it might work differently than you might expect. And finally, the while loop. These also have two versions, but they're both quite simple. The first one is while, in parentheses the condition, then your code block. And what this does, Java checks if the condition is true or not. If it's true, runs the code block, then comes back, checks again. And the moment the condition turns false, the code block won't be executed anymore and Java moves on. The other version of it is do the code block while the condition is true. And here the difference is, first Java runs the code block, then checks the condition. If the condition is true, it jumps back to the beginning, runs the code block again, and checks the condition again. And the moment the condition turns false, Java moves on to the rest of the program. So basically, in the first version, your code block gonna be executed only if the condition is true, while in the second version, your code block gonna be executed at least once, guaranteed, and the condition is checked only afterwards. And now let's check out an example. Let's say we create a game where a player can fight a monster, and if the monster hits the player loses a certain amount of his life. So the player starts with 100 hit points, and the monster hits for 17 hit points per slap. And as long as the player has health, I want to print out how much health he has. And when the health is gone, then I want to print out you died. So I do it by typing while the health is over 0. So I still have something left. I print out how much I have left. And then I reduce the health. So minus equals monster damage. And at the end, I print out you're done. And if you run this, Java keeps on running, keeps on printing how much health I have until I have only 15 hit points left. The next slap brings me below 0, so I get I'm dead. But here I can also use the other version of the for loop because I'm gonna get one slap for sure. So I can comment this out, and instead of this write do, print out my health, then reduce my health, minus equals monster damage, and do it as long as my health is above 0. And if we run this, we get basically the same. But you get the idea. In a do while loop, the code is guaranteed to run at least once. And in the while loop, it runs only if you start with a true value. And these were the basic control flow statements in Java. If something wasn't clear enough, or you think I should have explained it differently, let me know in the comments. And as always, if you like this video, please hit like, subscribe, it really helps a lot. Thank you and see you next time.